Okay, 7:58. Okay, Joelle, I want you to put your hands out. I want you to cup
Oh my goodness.
an endangered female black-footed ferret.
That is amazing. Oh, she's tiny.
Fully adult size, that is one of about 400 in the whole world.
It's such an honor to be holding such an amazing animal. This is so cool.
And if you can you can put her right on top of the pad right there.
Oh.
Very good.
I still honestly cannot believe this happened. There is a lot of context to all of this, but even if you stop watching in the next 2 seconds, I just want you to know one thing. The native prairie here in South Dakota is worth protecting. It's complicated, dynamic, beautiful, and full of life. And I want to invite you right now, over the next however many minutes, to come and experience some of this beauty with me. My name is Joelle Simpson. I'm your Miss South Dakota 2024, and I want to welcome you to the first ever episode of Nurturing Nature.
Can you see me in the darkness? It is 9:37 p.m. We are somewhere in the middle of the Badlands, heading to the Kanata Basin to find some ferrets. It's gonna be great. For me, the big motivator for this series was to highlight the conservation work that's happening with the black-footed ferrets. So I'm just so excited to start off this series with a bang, with a high note, and I cannot wait. I think it's going to be one of the most unique Oh, a badger! It's just going to be one of the most unique episodes because not many people, again, get to go spotlighting in the Badlands for black-footed ferrets. And so having the privilege to not only talk with and speak with a black-footed ferret expert, being able to see it firsthand is just so exciting. I'm so excited.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh my goodness. Hello.
Hi, Joelle.
Nice to meet you finally. Hello.
This is Ashley from the Forest Service.
Yeah, I think we met. Yeah, we met.
Yeah. You want to see the stars?
Whoa, beautiful.
I love this. I think it's one of my favorite things about coming down to the basin is just like if you need a moment, just step outside and just look at the stars.
Yeah.
And it's really good when the northern lights are really popping and you can just stop for a minute and
I'm sure.
take those in.
You can see a bit of the Milky Way right here
Okay.
in front of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, not allowed like food.
To understand why one of the first things Travis did was turn off the lights, I need you to know, seeing the stars in the Badlands was unbelievably beautiful, truly a deeply existential experience. Actually, the Badlands are famous for having amazing stargazing due to the low levels of light pollution. We were not set up for astrophotography, but the awesome people at the Badlands Observatory allowed us to show some of their work. If you are in South Dakota and have any interest in space or astronomy, I highly suggest checking them out. Link in the doobly-doo down below. As beautiful as it was to connect with the rest of the galaxy, that is not why we were there. We were there because we were invited by wildlife biologist Travis Livieri, who is the executive director of Prairie Wildlife Research. Part of Travis's work is spotlighting black-footed ferrets. Travis is like the black-footed ferret guy. He has published tons of research, linked to a few papers down below, and has helped manage one of the most, if not the most, successful black-footed ferret reintroduction sites here in the Badlands Kanata Basin area. So we need to understand two things. Actually, there's a secret third thing, but we'll get to that later. For now, just two things. What is a black-footed ferret, and what is spotlighting? Let's start with the first question.
Black-footed ferrets are small weasel that lives in prairie dog colonies and eats prairie dogs. They're about 2 feet long when they're mature. They weigh about maybe 2 to 3 pounds at the maximum. They're mostly nocturnal, and they occupy prairie dog colonies and prairie dog burrows, and that's their habitat. We don't find them anywhere else except for prairie dog colonies. Native Americans knew about black-footed ferrets. They had their own myths and legends about them, and stories to go along with it, and traditions. But they weren't described to science until 1851, when John James Audubon, the famous bird painter, show how little we knew about ferrets at that point in time. The painting that Audubon did for his book was of a black-footed ferret sneaking down into a bird's nest to eat a bird egg. I'm not saying that never happens, but that certainly is not their primary habitat and primary prey species. Again, they're prairie dog specialists. So around the turn of the century, about 1900, there were massive prairie dog poisoning campaigns that were started by the U.S. government, actually, in response to agricultural interests out here wanting to poison prairie dogs. And so the U.S. government sent out trainloads of strychnine lace bait to help kill prairie dogs in the western United States. And not only were they killing prairie dogs, they were killing wolves and all kinds of other animals out there that were considered injurious to the livestock industry. But that also had secondary effects then on something like a black-footed ferret, because you started to eliminate their habitat through poisoning. E.T. Seton had a great quote in a 1929 book or publication about the big, I gotta remember exactly how it goes, but the big demon of commerce.
Now that the big demon of commerce has declared war on the prairie dog, that merry little simpleton of the plains must go. And with the passing of the prairie dog, the ferret too will pass. Seton, 1929. I know this episode is about black-footed ferrets, and we haven't even gotten to the spotlighting yet, but we will get there. Here are some ferrets being adorable, and here is some of the spotlighting. We will get there, I promise. In order to have any understanding about the black-footed ferret and why we're in the middle of the night spotlighting and capturing them, we need to understand more about the prairie dog. See, the prairie dog is a keystone species in prairie ecology. It creates habitat for lots of other species, including our adorable friends, the black-footed ferret. 90% of the black-footed ferret's diet is prairie dogs. It goes in at night and attacks the prairie dogs in their sleep. It's actually kind of terrifying if you think about it, but that's nature. That is what the black-footed ferret is designed to do. 100,000 years ago, the black-footed ferret made its way to North America, found prairie dogs, specialized in prairie dog predation, and stuck to that game plan ever since. And prior to European settlement, that game plan worked fine, because the entire Midwest was covered with prairie dog towns. Prior to the 1900s, there was sustainable food and habitat. And then, well, you heard Travis talk about the US government poisonings of prairie dogs. And to talk a bit more about the history and contemporary attitudes of human prairie dog relations, we talked with Lindsay Sterling Crank, who works as the program director of Prairie Dog Conflict Resolution for the Humane Society of the United States. Tell me about what that means and what you do.
Prairie dogs find themselves in conflict all the time, too much, and actually so do most wildlife species. Most wildlife species are utilizing a resource that humans and people need and that we want to utilize also. Well, prairie dogs eat grass. So that's the resource that we, think about as a competition. We use grass for livestock, we use grass in ranching, and we play on grass. And a lot of other species and ungulates graze on grass too. So it's really just about managing populations and ecosystem levels and numbers, or maybe in some places not managing and letting them do their thing, so that they can have space to just be a natural animal in their natural ecosystem as well.
What are the strategies you use with working with, people who are coming in conflict? How do you help come to a solution with them?
So mostly I try to do planning together in advance, right?
Right.
So what do we all need to coexist on this land together? What do you need? What do the prairie dogs need? What are their habitat requirements? What are their associated species requirements? And kind of like putting it all out on a chart and figuring out, is there enough for everybody? If not, where can you get your needs met as a resource and as a rancher, or where can you get your needs met for the wildlife and the species that depend on them? And where they come into conflict on boundaries, can we have a tall grass buffer or a tall grass bank where they don't, kind of go through as much? Can you use vegetation to manage their movement? That's kind of a new and developing tactic that we've been employing. Like, they also have, different ways that they impact the landscape, and you can work with that to your advantage to prevent them from migrating in certain directions. You can try to encourage them to stay in certain directions. So those are some of the main tactics that we use. The most prominent prairie dogs you're most likely seeing are black-tailed prairie dogs, which is what we have here. And they live sometimes in dense populations when they are able to thrive at their natural levels. And that's when they support the most associated species. So that's when they support the ferrets and the swift fox and the Ferruginous hawk. I've seen so many raptors going after him lately.
Yeah, I got to
And
see
the
one
badgers.
too. And the badgers.
Oh, they were on my trap site the other day.
Really?
Yeah, so I was like, ah!
I saw 2 porcupines too.
Oh, they're so cute.
I know.
The other thing that I think that's something that humans can relate to is their communication system. It's really fascinating. They can say black shirt, they can say blue shirt, they can say how fast we're coming at them. They would equate you with a certain level of danger and equate me with, they probably think I'm very dangerous. I'm always in there messing with them, but they don't know. Even prairie dog populations that have been translocated have developed new words. And so they actually said that they maybe have a language, not just a communication system, because they can coin new words. They're super smart, and I think their communication system is just fascinating. So how important they are and their communication system might make you stop and think a little bit more about appreciating them.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I
Yeah.
had no idea about
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah, the history of the prairie dogs on the Great Plains is a sad story, but there's still hope in it, as Jane Goodall would always say. She says there's always hope, and she loves the prairie dogs and the ferrets, and she's come out and checked out our work before. So hello, Jane, you're still awesome. They've declined as a whole by 95% throughout their range.
Oh, really?
So we see them in abundance here, but it's not like it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. They declined by 95%.
Yes.
That's crazy to
I
think
know,
about.
and it's a widely accepted number. People try to dispute it all the time, and they're like, "Wow, I think there's a lot less prairie dogs than they were."
The prairie dogs that you work with are the black-tailed prairie dogs, and they are here in the Kanawha Basin,
Correct.
where we have the largest black-footed ferret population.
Yeah, largest
In-
black-footed ferret population.
In the entire world.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
It is.
Always say.
Yes.
Right here near the Badlands.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So tell me about why you're here today and what work you've been doing here at the Kanawha Basin.
Right. So it is a pleasure to work on the most important prairie dog colony in the world. I know, and it's because of the ferret. So it's really like this cultural, environmental, ecological, just gem, and I'm excited for I'm excited for the biologists that you have here and for their existence into the future, and that it's going to stick around for generations to come. I mean, it's all about our legacies and, what we can do to leave it to the next generation, right?
Have you faced, opposition from ranchers about
of course.
things? Or
Yeah.
what's been the kind of response to advocating for prairie dogs and
In general,
Yeah.
I mean, it's been across the board. People have been respectful, and I've been scared sometimes. But the way we've managed conflict for so long has just been lethally. It's been poison, or it's been with a gun, or it's been just, how do we get rid of it? And yes, it is easier sometimes to just get rid of something, immediately out of your face. But like, what are we actually doing when we lose a prairie dog colony? We're losing its, connection to all the host of species we've been talking about throughout this interview, and their positive ecosystem services that they have on the land. So I feel just a duty to the environment, which feeds me and clothes me and gives me so much in my soul, and every day it's just so beautiful out here, to keep it going. And I want to find solutions and not just roadblocks, and I want to keep trying to make it work so that it lasts for you guys and your kids and my kids, and we can keep going. And I feel like it's kind of like paying rent, right?
Yeah.
we owe it to this planet. Do prairie dogs compete with cattle for grass? Prairie dogs create more quality forage for cows. Yes, prairie dogs eat grass, and they also make the grass more quality forage because of their native role in the ecosystem, or their native role in the grassland and the dirt and the soils. They provide more nitrogen deposition. They get out all the little other invasive species that are coming in that are not native, that aren't as good for the cows. And then they also aerate the soil, and even with their burrows and their little digging activities all over. So those are kind of, and then I guess one more thing is they also clip the grass all the time, trying to just keep it down and keep it down and keep it down, so that other species coming in, other predators coming in, they can see and respond and get away from them. But what that's doing is just like the same as if you're clipping your rose bush, and you're clipping your rose bush, and you're clipping your rose bush, and you're clipping your rose bush. You then kind of have this really nice, beautiful rose, and you have a lot smaller shoot of grass, but it's rich and full of nutrients. So bison often are found grazing on prairie dog colonies. Ranchers find their cows on prairie dog colonies a lot. I know they do. They tell me all the time.
Yeah. So a little background on me. The sunset is so pretty. Also, by the way.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
That is beautiful.
I'm
Anyway.
so glad you get to see that.
Yeah, that is gorgeous. Wow. Yeah.
Besides seeing the distractingly beautiful sunset, it was good to talk to Lindsay to better understand the scale of human interference on the prairie ecosystem. When you lose 95% of a keystone species, other species are going to struggle, and that 95% decline was caused directly by human action. It's complicated. I know it's complicated, but I can't stop thinking about it. 95% reduction in a keystone species. We are going to cut back to Travis and jump into the adventure of the night. And one of the things Travis talked about was certain politicians. Travis said them by name, and their public statements towards prairie dogs. I'm not going to put that section in the episode because I don't want the comment sections of my nature education series to become a political battleground, but I know conservation is a political issue. It's an issue of power and resources and wealth and opportunity and human want, human need, and at times, human greed. As we hear more about the black-footed ferret's story, I want to offer another lens to view all this through. I want to invite you to think about human responsibility. How are we as a species taking accountability for our actions? 95% reduction in a keystone species. I can't stop thinking about it. The reason we are spotlighting the ferrets is because there are so few black-footed ferrets that they need to be monitored extremely closely. Pretty much every ferret, or at least every ferret they can find, is captured, vaccinated, documented, and released the same night right back into the burrow it came from. I really want you guys to feel like you are along with us, so we kept a lot of the footage in. This is a unique and rare opportunity, and we wanted to provide as much access to the work as possible. Let's hop in the pickup and head out.
The first black-footed ferret population ever studied was in Millette County, South Dakota in 1964. So that was the first time that a biologist said, hey, there's a whole bunch of black-footed ferrets there. Let's go actually study this thing because we don't know anything about them. That's when we first learned, the basic ecology of black-footed ferrets and how reliant upon prairie dogs they actually were, how to find them. Those are the first guys that did spotlighting at night to find them, and they developed traps to capture them, and got the first basic ecological insights to this species. That was just in the 1960s, from 64 to 74. They were working essentially trying to stay one step ahead of the prairie dog poisoning crews. They would try to get into an area before the prairie dog poisoning crew got there to see if there were any black-footed ferrets there, to see if they could potentially then head off that poisoning. And usually they were not very successful at heading off the poisoning. But so the Endangered Species Act was passed in 1973. ferrets were right away listed as endangered. That's how we already knew right then and there that they were in trouble. So this population in Millette County, they're like, okay, we better do something about this. We better make sure the species does not go extinct. So they captured up a total of 9 over a couple year period and brought them into captivity. They tried to breed them. They unfortunately were not successful at breeding them in captivity. They did produce 2 litters in captivity, but they were stillborn or died shortly after birth. And by 1974, they didn't know of any more ferrets out in the wild here in South Dakota or anywhere else. And so they had just a couple left in captivity, and they essentially just watched them get old and die. The last one of those in captivity then died in 1979. So at that point, 1979, we didn't know of a single live black-footed ferret, either in a zoo or in the wild, anywhere on the planet. So we are looking for the green eye shine of black-footed ferrets. It's all about the size of the eye shine, the behavior of the eye shine, and kind of the quality of that color. And there's some eye shine right there that we're looking at.
Ooh.
Looking pretty good.
Ooh. I'm surprised it's still up. I thought he would.
But it's certainly out of burrow.
Yeah.
It's certainly looking like a black-footed ferret.
Oh my God.
We'll get a little bit closer to get a better look. Yeah. That, Joelle, is an endangered black-footed ferret.
Oh my goodness.
One of about
So cool.
400 left in the whole world.
That's crazy to think about. Wow.
So it's just poking her head up out of the burrow right now, taking a look at us. It's pretty early night yet. It's only 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
We're going to give it just a minute to see if it wants to get out and run around a little bit. I'm going to scan on the sides here a little bit, because if this is a mom and she's got kits, they actually might be in a different burrow right now. They might be looking at us, and we're looking at her. There might be a kit over here looking at us.
Okay.
So I'll give it a little scan this way. Nobody else up that way. And nobody else up this way. Okay, but there you are.
And she's curious about us, and that's why she's still...
She is.
Oh my goodness.
Curious, cautious.
Wow.
You know, she's kind of assessing what kind of threat we might pose to her. There we go.
Oh my God.
And she's thinking, I'm gonna run to that burrow. That's where I want to be. I can probably make it to that burrow before they can make it to me. So.
Wow.
So, come with me. We're gonna look down on the burrow, and you might see them right down in the burrow looking at us.
Okay.
We just gotta figure out. Don't come this way. Come this way. Nope, not looking at us. But if you want to go ahead and keep the flashlight, keep looking. I'm gonna go get a trap out of the back of the truck.
Okay. This is the coolest thing ever. Believe it or not, right down there is a black-footed ferret. And we're about to trap him. Or her. And see her up close. Wow.
Did he pop his head up at all?
Nope.
Okay, well, we're gonna set this trap. Right down the burrow like that. We're gonna look down to the side. It hasn't tripped yet, so we're hoping he's gonna walk up and hit this pan right there, which will close the door down at the bottom end, and then we've got him trapped.
Perfect.
So we're gonna set this reflector out, number 164.
164.
We'll get a GPS location. Now we're gonna drive away.
Drive away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we're gonna come back and check this in about an hour,
Okay.
and hopefully that ferret will be in there.
Okay.
So let's go find some more.
All right.
In 1981, September 26, 1981, outside the small town of Meeteetse, Wyoming, a ranch dog named Shep, protective ranch dog that he is, he killed that little intruder. And the next morning when his owners came outside, John and Lucille Hogg were their name. They, well, sure had Shep, we, heard a little scrap in the yard here last night, and what was going on? And Shep had this little weasel he had killed. And John picked it up and said, that's a neat looking critter. And he threw it onto the garbage pile. And it sat there for the better part of the day until his wife Lucille said, we're gonna go to town today, John, so why don't you go grab that strange critter off the pile, and we'll take it to the taxidermist and we'll get it stuffed. And we'll put it on the fireplace mantle. She thought it was some kind of an odd squirrel or something like that. And they took it to a taxidermist in Meeteetse, Wyoming, and he kind of knew what it was, and they called it in, and that's how we found black-footed ferrets again. Biologists then kind of rushed into Meeteetse to document this last population. And they counted 129 individuals in 1984. They came back in 1985, and using the same exact methodology, they counted 58 individuals. So they knew something was going on. What should we do? Should we leave them out here? Are they gonna survive? We don't know that much about this species. Are they gonna, be able to make it through this decline? What's causing the decline? They understood that two things were happening. Plague, which is the disease that is still a scourge for black-footed ferrets and prairie dogs, was wiping out prairie dogs and ferrets, as well as canine distemper, which is the same disease that your dog can get. And remember that the ones they captured out of South Dakota in the 1960s and 70s, they were unsuccessful at producing them in captivity. So that was, one strike against why we should pull them out of the wild. But then again, maybe we learned something from that effort that could help a new effort. So by the time they got done arguing about it and whatnot, there was only a handful left. So they captured up the last 18 individuals and brought them into captivity for captive breeding. So between 1985 and 87, they captured up the last 18, brought them into a breeding center called Sabile Canyon, Wyoming, operated by Wyoming Game and Fish Department. And that's where they started to really get into intensive captive breeding of black-footed ferrets, and hoping that it worked. And this time it did work. And they produced enough kits, that's what the young black-footed ferrets are called, in captivity, that by 1991 we start putting them back out into the wild. We call that reintroduction. We've got a ferret, Joelle.
Yay!
Okay, let me back up here and we'll get in position to get this ferret out of the trap, and then we'll see if we can get a reading on it.
Yes. It's you. Cool. Oh my goodness! Hello! You are so cute! Oh my god! Oh my god! He's so cute!
Yeah, all right. So we're gonna get him out of the trap.
Okay.
Actually, I'm gonna grab a reader and we're gonna see if there's a microchip in him first, but
We are seeing a black-footed ferret. We are 3 feet apart. We see each other. Oh my goodness. This is the coolest thing ever. This is so
Okay. Yeah.
Oh! He's chirping.
Let's see if your mom. No, you're a female, but I think you're a kit. So we're gonna get her into this tube.
Okay.
Into the tube. Mm-hmm. Okay. Don't let me get my secret weapon out.
Oh.
We're going to scan this tube real quick to make sure she's not microchipped. Put my secret weapon away. She is not microchipped. So we're going to take her back to the trailer and microchip her. So, Joelle, put your hands out. There you go. Come on over here and get in the truck.
Okay. This is crazy. Oh,
Yes,
there's a hole right there.
Sit down now.
Okay. Thank you.
So, I'll mark the number on this one.
So cool. So right here in my lap is a black-footed ferret. You cannot see him right now, but I can feel her. It's a her, right?
Yes.
I could feel her. She's sitting in my lap.
Okay.
And we're gonna microchip her. This is so cool. This is amazing.
I'm going to reset it just in case she's got siblings nearby that are in the same hole. Okay. So let's head back to the trailer. Okay. Pretty early on, the Kanata Basin Badlands area was identified as a high priority site for black-footed ferret recovery because of the large blocks of federal land here. So that meant that it was, somewhat protected in terms of it wasn't going to be plowed up or completely shot out and by shooters or anything like that. And so this was deemed a pretty high priority site for reintroduction pretty early on. Over a 6-year period from 1994 to 1999, we reintroduced about 300 black-footed ferrets from the zoos to the wild here, and the population established and took off pretty well. So that we do not need to put out any more zoo-born black-footed ferrets out here. This is a self-sustaining, fully wild population. So these are 25 years removed from captivity now. Our population grew throughout the early 2000s, a fully wild population pretty quickly. And by the year 2007, we had a minimum of 355 individual black-footed ferrets here in this population. There were ferrets everywhere throughout the Kanata Basin Badlands area. This is easily the largest population in the world, and nowhere had there ever been anybody that had counted that many black-footed ferrets historically. One of the reasons that this population has done that well is because there was no plague here. Plague is a non-native disease. It came to North America in 1900 on ships from Asia with rats and fleas. So it's the same disease, that same bacterial disease that you think of with Black Death, bubonic plague, sylvatic plague. It's all the same disease. Highly deadly to humans. A lot of our rodent species, a lot of our cat species die of plague, and unfortunately our black-footed ferret species dies of plague as well.
Right here, I'm holding a black-footed ferret. And we're gonna chip her and see her. I'm so excited.
Okay, we're gonna set her.
I feel amazing. I'm gonna take the light off so you can see my ferret hat. But yes, this is...
You're going to have to wear a face mask.
Okay. So, a mask because she may or may not have the plague.
Because we don't want to transmit anything to her.
Oh,
They are susceptible
okay.
to influenza.
Okay.
And so when we've got her this close, we're doing stuff this close to her.
Okay.
We want to be on the precautionary side of things. Trap location 164. The date is the night that we went out, so that is 9/4/24. Our survey area is agate. The field collector is Livieri and Simpson. Interface with the chamber. Like that. And time for the ferret plunger. There we go.
That's a lovely contraption.
High tech.
High tech.
High tech. Absolutely. Okay. So now we have the ferret in the chamber. Now I'm going to hook up some gas anesthesia. I couldn't work with it if it wasn't knocked out. Yep, it's not going to sit still for anything. So I'm going to draw up a 1/2 ml of plague vaccine for her.
Okay. Can the ferret be vaccinated more than once with this?
It's preferred she gets at least 2 shots in her lifetime.
Okay.
So a primary and a booster, just like COVID shots and things
Okay.
like that, and that's when it's most effective. So there's the plague vaccine. Then I've got distemper vaccine. Canine distemper, yep, same thing that dogs and raccoons and other things get, and similar to other distempers. So,
Checking to make sure she's fully asleep.
yep,
Okay.
because we don't want her to be out if she's not.
Wow.
Okay, you are definitely a kit. I can tell by your teeth.
Oh.
And you are a female kit, as we had surmised out in the trap. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to comb her for fleas.
Whoa.
No fleas came off of her. That is good.
Nice.
That means that our flea control efforts on this colony have worked.
Yay.
Okay. Next, I'm going to look for some ticks on her. I did not see any ticks on her, which is also good. No, I shouldn't say that. They usually concentrate around the head and the neck where the ferret can't reach them with its mouth.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Just a couple of ticks, not a lot, which is good. Next, I'm at a hair sample. There's her hair sample. Okay. She is breathing okay. I look back here. So everything on a ferret's body is elongated, as you can see by the diagram there. Her heart is down here. Still no microchip. So we're going to give you one. Here's the microchip needle. There's the number that she's going to have for her ID number. And that's the needle. Same thing that you could put in your dog or cat.
Yeah.
I glue the hole shut. I can feel the microchip under her skin. And boom.
Boom.
That's her number now.
She's in the database.
Yep. Next, we'll give her plague vaccine. And now her distemper vaccine.
I measured her.
Body measurement, she is 41 at 53.
How was that in comparison to other?
Pretty normal, that's adult
Normal?
size, yep. Next, I'm going to take some cheek cells from her. So now I am going to get a blood sample. Okay. That's the way I wanted to get it. Now we're going to give her a little bit of a dye mark.
So you know she's been
Yep.
vaccinated recently.
Okay. 7:58. Okay, Joelle, I want you to put your hands out. I want you to cup
Oh my goodness.
an endangered female black-footed ferret.
That is amazing. Oh, she's tiny.
Fully adult size. That is one of about 400 in the whole world.
It's such an honor to be holding such an amazing animal. This is so cool.
And if you can you can put her right on top of the pad right there.
Oh.
Very good. There's yours.
I get to keep it?
You get to keep the microchip number, yes.
What an honor. Wow. I have to put this in
I
my
can't give you anything from her
scrapbook.
because she's an endangered species. You can't take any hair, you can't take anything from her. That would require a permit. You know, the hair that's in this envelope requires a permit.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow. I'm honored to have her identity, her identification.
Next year you can ask me, how's my female doing?
Yeah. Hello. Hi. Good morning. Good morning. Where am I?
You can take her home.
All right.
All right, girl. You want to go ahead and get in the truck?
Oh.
There you go.
Cool.
There will always have to be some level of attention paid to black-footed ferrets. This will never be a species that we put them out in the wild and we dust our hands off and go, job well done, that's it, we can walk away. This will always be managed to some level. Hopefully not as intensely as we have to do now, or maybe cheaper or something like that. But this will always be a managed species to some degree. As humans, we're not allowing things to exist in the landscape very easily. We very readily are carving up the landscape and determining what we're going to allow to exist and not exist in an area. Whether that be through agriculture or resource extraction or whatever it may be. We're already determining what's going to live where on this planet. We've got a limited number of places that we're going to really be successful with black-footed ferrets. And we kind of know where those places are. And we have to do a better job at maintaining some of those places, I think. But this is certainly one of those special places. Declining species out there that are in that similar boat of, are we going to allow them to exist? Where are we going to allow them to exist, and at what level? At what level do we allow their habitat to thrive and whatnot? And where are we going to tolerate them in the landscape?
What is one thing you would suggest all South Dakotans do to, help preserve and promote this effort that you are working on?
Sure. I think South Dakotans can really get involved in public lands management, as well as understanding what's going on some of the tribal lands as well. A lot of our best habitat for black-footed ferrets is actually on tribal lands, but sometimes it's not as easy to manage prairie dogs and tribal lands as it is other places. We're on public lands. We're on Forest Service land here right now. Every single South Dakotan owns this piece of land. So they have a say in how this piece of land gets managed. So they should get involved in public lands management.
As we conclude our journey into the world of the black-footed ferret, we are reminded that the fate of this remarkable species lies in our hands. The delicate balance of the prairie ecosystem is not only shaped by its inhabitants, like the prairie dog, ferruginous hawks, swift foxes, and the black-footed ferrets, but it's also shaped by the choices we make as humans. It was human activity that led to the decline of the black-footed ferret's food source, the prairie dog, along with the destruction of their habitat. Furthermore, the introduction of disease, like the plague, has posed a serious threat to their survival. These actions have had a profound impact, and it's crucial for us to acknowledge our role in this narrative. It is not a matter of chance that this species is still alive. If it weren't for the constant conservation and breeding efforts over the last several decades, the black-footed ferret would be gone forever, extinct, forever altering the prairie ecosystem. The black-footed ferret is a reflection of our priorities and actions as a society. So how will we proceed? Will we step forward, take responsibility, and nurture the incredible biodiversity that enriches our planet? Or will we continue to damage and wipe out the Earth's beauty? By nurturing our environment and actively participating in conservation efforts, we can ensure the black-footed ferret and countless other species have a place in our world. Thank you so much for watching. Let's nurture nature so it nurtures us. Check out Prairie Wildlife Research to learn more about Travis's work down in the description below. And if you like this video and want to see more like it, please like and subscribe. Here is a little sneak peek for what we have coming up next.